This video is to give instructions on how to create design number 1, design inspired by Bridget Riley. Here's like a finished example of one. This is just kind of step-by-step on how to work with that. I've left a 4x4 piece of paper for you so that this is the same size as the box that you're going to be working with, which is 4x4. I went ahead and traced 2 boxes. One is going to be the one that's already on your template, and then I recommend taking a scrap piece of paper and tracing out, I highlighted it pink just so you can see it up against the white on white, but I went ahead and just traced it with a pencil on a scrap sheet of paper just so I could practice it and make sure that I'm happy with my stencil before I go to my final square that's on my template. All right, so to make a stencil, like I said, I just put the pink so that you could see it a little bit easier when I go to line it up. The first thing is getting some type of wave to put going across your stencil. Now, a couple examples of things I would avoid. I usually stick with curves or zigzags, but one of the things is when you create a curve, try and have it go up gradually instead of... This looks cool, but when you go to retrace it over top, you're going to get where it starts looking like this and they're going to overlap. But when you have it where it gradually goes in and then gradually comes back out, that kind of even flow, you are going to notice that it's going to kind of constrict here on the sides. Bridget Riley described that as kind of like breathing, how it goes. It's close in and then it comes back out. So you're going to get a nice flow of these getting closer on the sides, but they shouldn't overlap. Now, I know mine do because I'm free drawing it, which is why we create a stencil. Oh, and with zigzags, you know, you can use a ruler if you need to, but zigzags usually work out pretty good. You get a little bit more movement with a little bit of curve to it. So first thing I'm going to do is make my stencil. I recommend measuring this. I've been doing this project for years, and what I have found is to start at the same place on both sides, meaning your 4x4 square, I'm going to mark my 2-inch spot so that I start there and I end at 2 inches on the other side as well. This helps with lining it up to make it more accurate. It's going to help you in the long run, so trust me. Spend a little time doing this. So this is 2 inches here and 2 inches here so that it starts and finishes at the same place. So you're going to take your wave across. See, make sure I end up on that little bit there. And if I didn't like that, you know, that little tiny one that started there, I'm going to go back so it's a little more fluid. I don't recommend putting a whole bunch because you are going to have to cut each of these out. And when we're working on a 4x4 square, that's a lot to worry about. So keep it simple. I think you'll feel more successful that way. I'm going to go ahead and cut this design. Remember, this is paper that's 4x4, and I'm actually using a cardstock so it's a little bit thicker. Also, when I purchase it, it's called tag board, but it's like a cardstock or poster board, however you want to think of it. So it's a little bit thicker. And when you cut, use the inside of your scissors. You have a little more control with those, and the blade is usually nice and sharp. Instead of cutting with the ends of your scissors, try and take them a little bit closer in. Take your time. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to save this piece just in case I end up, you know, messing up this one and, you know, I don't know. I'm going to keep it for a little bit, but I'm not going to keep it forever. I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of highlighter on the edges just so you can see it a little better on the paper that I'm using. You don't need to do this. It's just easier for, you know, when you're making a video. So to practice, I'm going to be taking this stencil all the way down, and I'm going to trace it each time I put a line. But here's where a little bit of math comes in, which is usually the part students, you know, sometimes just because they're doing a lot of measuring, you know, things can be a little bit off. For my class, I'm asking you all to create little dash marks 1/8 of an inch. So the ruler that I have here, it's divided into 16, so a 16th of an inch. But for my class project, I want you guys to work with a 1/8 of an inch. So I'm just going to mark like every other tally mark. I'm going to put this on the edge of my box. I turned it over, and you do this all the way down so that they're all even. Now, because this is just a demonstration, and to make it a little bit quicker, let's pretend that I put all my dash marks down here. So let's pretend that's good, right? And then I'm going to go straight to the other side, line up the edge of my ruler. I'm going to put little dash marks. So remember, 1/16, oh, sorry, 1/8 of an inch. Sometimes for students that really struggle with fine motor skills, I'm not going to lie, I've had them switch over to a 1/4 of an inch. Let's pretend that I went ahead and added all those. So if you're really struggling with the 1/8 of an inch after practicing it and it's just not working out, you can switch to a 1/4 of an inch. You just won't get as much movement as you would hope to. So since I know these are both 2 inches, and I'm going to keep them lined up with tally 1 and tally 1 on the other side. So if it's tally 1, then the next set, tally 2s, tally 3s. Kind of made that up a little bit. If you start a little further down the page, just make sure it's lined up correctly and you have matching tallies on the other side. So if this is a practice, you can use your pencil, which is what I've done. But I'm going to go ahead and use color like you would on your final one. So pick a couple different colors. I think I have a minimum of 2, and you're going to want to make a pattern with your lines that you make. So just remember, you're looking for a pattern. So maybe I alternate like 3 blues and then 2 pinks and a dark blue. So it's like 3, 2, 1 over and over again. So you're showing me that you understand what a pattern is, and it adds a little order to your design. I'm going to start on number 2. Just so that you can see a little bit here. There's barely anything. And I'm just going to stop when I get to the outside of the box. There's nothing here yet, so I'm going to skip over that. So that was tally 2. Then I'm going to move down to tally 3. And I'm holding it with one hand and just kind of marking with my other. Take your time. If you go real slow, you might see some hesitation marks with the Sharpie. But just do your best. I know you're not a robot, and you might have a little hesitation with some of those marks because it's just kind of the nature of the materials. Always make sure it lines up with your box. And I kind of rushed my tally marks, so I kind of feel like one of these might be off because when I put it up there, it's kind of tilted. So that's my bad. That's what happens when you don't take your time. So adding another blue. Ending at the same spot. And then I can switch colors as I go. So I have next tally, line it up with the next one. And you'll notice that following the stencil, that as these lines come down, they're going to get closer and closer together. So it's kind of like they condense and then they get wider. And so that's normal. If you had your stencil like this, there shouldn't really be overlap. They should just kind of run into each other. But if you have a lot of curves to yours, you'll see a lot of overlap, or sometimes if they touch too much, I've seen students where they just kind of stop and pick up on the next line. As you go through, you know, you can fill your box. When you get down here and you run out of little dash marks, I usually stop. Don't make up any dash marks down here. So, but you can stop a little bit before the box too. I just kind of like to have it, you know, even on both sides. The student that created this one, they did a great job with getting an even from the top to the bottom. And this is where I was pointing out where as you dip down with your line, they're going to get closer and closer together. So it constricts and then it gets a little wider. So if that happens and they're running over each other, sometimes I've seen where a student will stop and then just kind of pick up there, and then, you know, that may sound really confusing, but, you know, test it out, see if you're happy with your stencil, and then do the same thing to your next box. Put your 1/8 of an inch tally marks on the sides, and then make sure these two sections here match. Like I said, I did a 2-inch here, 2-inch here, and my wavy line. You can also use zigzag. So, all right.